while you're answering a question and not focusing 100% on.
Okay, so sales is the most amazing job on the planet. People just don't realize that. Real sales. I'm not talking about selling something and forcing someone to buy it. Joy. It's just joyful. I can't say, I mean, it just makes me so happy. It's the best.
I can see it. I mean, you lit up while talking about it. Hi, and welcome back to my podcast, Extraordinary with Chirag. In today's episode, I am in conversation with Tara Myshrall. Tara is a senior business leader, and we talk about four things. Number one, we talk about productivity hacks that leaders have. How is it that they're able to do so much in just one day? Number two, we talk about some of the challenges that women face in a workplace, especially in male dominant industries. How is it that they're able to overcome these challenges? And what is it that we can do as colleagues to support our female colleagues? Number three, I wanted to understand what is the meaning of diversity and inclusivity. What is it that the leadership team is doing to be able to create a culture that truly embraces diversity and inclusivity? Lastly, we talk about imposter syndrome. Is it something that is prevalent only at the grassroots level, or do leaders also go through imposter syndrome? If they do, how are they able to overcome this? It is an extremely engaging conversation, and I hope that you enjoy it just as much as I did. The one takeaway that I want to leave you with is the fact that in order for us to be successful, we need to truly embrace ourselves with all our strengths and weaknesses. Nobody, and absolutely nobody, has got it all figured out. Do shit that you enjoy, and you will see how you will be successful doing that. Lastly, today's episode is brought to you by Kent Water Purification System. They are the pioneers in providing you with tasty, healthy, and chemical free water. Contact their team on the number given below for a free water test. Thank you, Kent, for believing in my vision and sponsoring this episode. Now, enjoy this conversation. Tara, thanks for doing this. I'm excited to have you on the show. For a lot of listeners who may not know who you are, would you be able to quickly tell us what you do, who you are, some cool stuff about you that we probably don't know?
It would be my pleasure. And thank you so much for having me on your show and the opportunity to share on this forum. I think what you're doing is amazing work. So I'll start there. My name is Tara Myshrall, and I am not a fan of saying I do this because I do many things, and I tend to love diversity. And I use diversity in my own life by changing up what I do from day to day. So during my day hours, I am in the corporate tech world. I'm a regional vice president and I run Canada for a technology company. And when I'm not doing that, I'm a mother to a 21-year-old boy who's now a man. I always call him my man child, but he's off in the UK doing his law degree now. When I'm not doing that, my goal is to help women step into expansion. And so, what does that really mean? And when I say women, I mean that's my predominant focus, but we can't do it alone. We cannot help elevate women without having male alliances beside them. And that doesn't fall on deaf ears for me. So, inclusion in all levels is important. What do I mean when I say step into expansion? I write a lot. I do coaching and I train group classes, and I also do a lot of speaking. And predominantly, I feel that women have been taught over the years to conform, contort themselves, and to not really step into a full expression, whether it's culturally or just what they've been taught and passed down through our generational traumas. My goal is to help women define what their ideal life looks like, remove barriers, and go after it. And so I also like diversity and inclusion. And so I'm part of the IWB, which is Immigrant Women in Business, and I lead the tech platform for them. And the goal there is just to take that female expansion and get laser focused on the immigrant experience, because that's even compounded when there's visible minorities and visible differences for people. And then last but not least, I love to be involved with different school systems. So I'm also on the board of Conestoga Colleges, trying to, the PAC program, trying to get students, especially female students, more involved in tech. So it really is something that anchors through every area of my life. And I'm lucky enough to find all these diverse ways to fill it up. And then when I'm not doing that, I love dancing, jumping out of airplanes, climbing mountains. And I guess that's all the time I have. But if I can squeeze in nature at the beach, then that just rounds it out perfectly.
Wow, that's a lot of things that you're doing and living life to the fullest. That's amazing to learn. Any productivity tips or tricks that you can share? How are you packing so much in your schedule and acing all of it?
Yeah, so there's been several books that have written along the way, right? Like the 4-day work week and trying to maximize your performance. For me, it's a little bit of an opposite approach. I try to take off the things that someone else can do from my plate. So I have a wonderful assistant that works with me, that her name is Anu. She's also an immigrant, and she's really great because she can help me with the spreadsheets and with responding to some of my emails and to getting some of my marketing programs done. And by her offloading that work, it makes my evenings more fruitful. So I have time to do wonderful events like this. You really have to get laser focused on what is the impact you want to have. And for me, I have far greater impact writing a chapter in a book, or being at a speaking engagement, or teaching a class of women for an hour in the morning or over the weekend, than I do sitting down doing that, spreadsheet and calculating and organizing my time. Now, some people love it. Anu loves it. Like, she loves spreadsheets. So it's great because she gets to do the things she really loves, and I get to do what I really love. And so that's my secret. It's being able to get off your plate anything you don't need. And as a woman, my mom taught us at a very young age, like Saturdays we're cleaning the house, and we cleaned from top to bottom, and our house was like really organized, really clean, even though I'm one of 5 kids that she had to manage and their own business. It was really hard when I had to like get a cleaning lady to help, or use Uber a little more often, or have these meals, or Mama Planet like deliver fresh vegetables to my house. But I realized that that's low value, low return. And so when I cook because I love it. When I clean, I'm taking pleasure in it. And if it's just a task that needs to be done, then I outsource it.
That's amazing. I love to get that perspective from you. I'm interested to learn that is this mindset and this process of elimination something that you developed over time, or you were very clear in your mindset and ruthless about the fact that this is not how I'm going to live my life. These things take away a lot of joy and time from my life. So this is not worth it. So, how did you develop this mindset?
Wonderful question. I used to think that the value of me as a person was how many accomplishments and achievements I could have under my belt, and making sure I did it all by myself and not asking for help, because I knew if I did it, it would be done right the first time, which is actually just playing on control. And it's based on childhood wounds when we find ourselves doing that. And so I started a long time ago with down the personal development angle. I started reading Deepak Chopra when I was in grade 6. I went to my first Tony Robbins in my early 20s.
Wow.
So, walking on coal really helped to say, hey, wait, I can do really big things. But as I was doing bigger things, I was still feeling like I had to do all the other things that weren't high value. I had a stroke at 40, and I was quite healthy. Maybe a little too much scotch with the guys sometimes, but overall, I ate well. Always been predominantly a vegetarian, like all of that. And I think, those 7 days in the hospital, and when I finished those 7 days in the hospital, 10 days in a silence retreat, meditating and connecting to my soul, what I realized is that I'm perfect and complete just the way I am. And when I came from a full cup, I no longer had to put all these check marks. And ironically, I do a lot more now than I did before. But it's because I let go of some of those tasks. I let go of feeling that I couldn't ask for help. And it's also really strange because I always want to be of service and give and provide help to others. I wasn't willing to ask for it myself. And so that I pivoted me and really helped me to step into being all right with not doing everything, being all right with B plus work, which really is A work in the end of the day because there's no such thing as A plus work. Everything is open to perception. And that kind of changed the game and the trajectory for me to do some of these other things. And it also eliminated some of the fear of perfectionism where I was scared to put content out. I would be scared to get on a podcast or because it wasn't good enough. It moved all of that and just made me realize that like I am perfect right now as I am because perfect is to be imperfect as a human.
That's the perfect answer.
Thank you.
What you said is really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Something that I crossed my mind because I've had this conversation fairly recently with one of the business leaders that I had on the podcast. Her name is Lydia Bauza, and she's been part of HR in the automotive industry for a while, and she's a senior person there. She mentioned this, and I was pretty horrified because I was thinking about it, I was like, I have been so focused on myself as to how I'm growing, how my life is easier, that I've never had these conversations. I knew these things, but somehow they were like white noise somewhere in the back, never coming to my mind that I belong to the automotive world, so it's a male dominant industry. B, there are so many challenges and obstacles, struggles that the female colleagues have to go through, which we have no idea about. And as sons, husbands, boyfriends, partners, fathers, we feel that everything is good in our house, and that's pretty much it. One has not had the mindset to think about it from an outside perspective as well. So, the first question I want to ask, keeping that in mind, that you when you had a stroke, was it also somewhere related to the fact that you are a senior woman leader trying to prove herself and prove her worth, that you took on added stress which caused that?
I mean, it's certainly a possibility that it led to it because I truly believe in the mind, soul, and body connection, and everything stress related will show up in your body. And so when you're getting those stomach aches, when you're getting those headaches, people go and they take a tablet and they want to quiet it. I try to do the opposite and listen, what is my body trying to tell me? And certainly my body was trying to tell me that I was on overload mode. And there's an imposter syndrome that everybody talks about. Not everybody, that's not factual, but many women leaders talk about it. And it is true, right? Because the same way like you were not able to see some of the things you just discussed, us as women aren't. We work our way through a male dominated industry and we see what is happening around us. The predominant leaders around us are male. And so the behaviors of success that we learn and try to emulate are one of masculine tendencies. And then we naturally feel that we have to hide our gifts of the nurturing and the compromising and the thing, all of those feminine energy gifts that come up, and put on that tough, give me the numbers, how do we drive harder, masculine mentality. And I'm not saying there's not room for both, but we have to understand to truly bring the best of ourselves to the table as female leaders, we have to be female leaders, whatever that looks like. And what I mean by that is our authentic true self, to let that shine through, because that's the difference that will move the organization forward. Otherwise, they're getting more of what they've always gotten, and it's time for change. Does
That's
that answer
nice.
your question?
Definitely it does. It does give me a perspective, and it also is a perfect segue into talking about organizations. And I come from a community of immigrants, and you work closely with them, so you understand the struggles and the challenges one has to go through. Now, I'm going to ask you point blank, because I want to really get this answer out for as many people as I possibly can. What is Canadian experience? Is it in some way genuine lack of understanding of culture and soft skills from people who are coming from a different country? Number one. Second, is it, and you can tell me if you choose not to respond to it, but is that somewhere racism wrapped in form of Canadian experience? Because I mean, I genuinely don't understand that. How is it that when you cross a border, and if you worked with, let's say, global brands in another country, and you move to the west, how can suddenly your experience not get counted? Yes, cultural things are important, those nuances are important, but there is trainings available for that. There are and you're a leader, so I'm sure that when you're looking at hiring other leaders, people in senior roles, these are things that you influence, and that's how you shape culture in an organization. So you're probably best equipped to answer this mystery of Canadian experience for us.
That ties into inclusivity, right? Like,
Hmm.
if we're truly going to have a diversified workforce, it can't be by pushing diversity. It has to be by more inclusivity, where someone can bring all of themselves to the table. For me as a female leader, or for an immigrant coming into the country, there are basic business norms that if you have, meaning, show up like you're ready for success, put a smile on because we have something to be happy about. We're on the right side of the ground
Yep.
and we have a job, right? Like, so those are great things. Let's start
Absolutely.
there. um, but then there are people who I believe, who I've seen, this impacts both sides. So I'll start as an employer. As an employer, sometimes employers are not even privy to their own lens they're looking at. And so they look back at, what have we done in the past? What does success look like? It looks like this. They have a checklist. Then they ask you questions, and you may not line up with that checklist because that checklist may have been taken from all of these male white leaders, for example, just using that. And they
Yeah.
don't even realize that they're continuing this bias, or what can lead to racism, right? Because these biases are embedded.
Hmm.
The second part of that is opening to new perspective and understanding as a leader, when we're hiring someone, if we put the checklist down for a second and we understand who the person on the other line is, and we ask them questions to really get to the heart of their work ethic, their desire to be coached and to be teachable and to want to learn, their desire to be of service and to show up for the other person that they're serving, whether it's a client or a patient or a civilian, and having a mutual respect for their teammates and their leaders, and having business acumen. If they have that, we can teach them the rest. And by taking that and understanding it's our duty as leaders to teach that maybe 10 or 20% that they're missing, we will gain so much more because they're bringing their efficiencies in. Maybe where they came from is more process driven, maybe, but they can always bring something unique to the Canadian experience. So that's what's helped me with trying to have fair hiring, where I've hired people who maybe haven't come from my field, or who are of different ethnic background, or different sexes, because I don't usually use a checklist, and it's been highly effective. One of my old leaders, he had me interview everybody that the team was hiring, just because you could get to that interpersonal skills, and if you can, they tend to be great hires. Now, on the other end of that, as immigrant people, we sometimes look at our differences as flaws and we try to hide them. And that also does us. We should want to talk about our unique traits, our things that are our blessings that were given to us, that make us feel passionate and that drive us. Because when you talk about something you're passionate about, what happens? You light up, you glow. Who wouldn't want to work for someone who's so excited? So talk about the things that make you different. Acknowledge the things you don't know. And most importantly, don't think that not speaking the language perfectly automatically puts you out of the equation, because so many women I mentor, they're afraid of that. They're afraid that they won't say a word right, or that's okay. That's how you learn. That's how you get better. And the person on the other end, they're not always Canadian customers, right?
Of course.
So go out there and embrace that difference. Don't be afraid of not speaking the language well, and give yourself, before your interview, your best shot by knowing you deserve that opportunity. And if you go in with that and you don't get the role, then it's not meant for you. Next. But you'll have a much stronger chance of getting it if you think about those things over what you're lacking or perceived to be lacking.
You're absolutely right. There is so much of focus given and probably put on language that a lot of people are focusing primarily on that one aspect as opposed to being able to bring out their entire personality in that conversation. Just making sure of am I saying the right things? Am I pronouncing this word correctly? Imagine all that playing in your mind while you're answering a question and not focusing 100% on the essence of what that question was. So I can relate to it. I've been in those shoes as well, having moved to a different country. And interesting because in India, when you speak the language, and now it's changing a lot because I've been here for almost half a decade, you would be able to get by if you speak or you spoke fairly well. And over here, odds are fairly even because now everybody speaks the language, and for you, it's not your first language. So yeah, there's a lot of introspection people go through, and I feel that at times it also pulls you down. But I love the fact that you're on this mission of helping people, enabling people, and you spoke about a couple of things: inclusivity and diversity. I want to bring the focus back on this. And as somebody who's a complete novice to this, would you be able to break down the difference between diversity and inclusivity so that we don't understand them as just buzzwords, we understand the true essence of it? So what is diversity and inclusivity in practice?
The way I would break it down is that diversity, it's more forced. It's more to make sure that the organization doesn't get in trouble. It's taking a certain demographic and trying to give them an opportunity or right based on that demographic. It's usually visual, like the Asian population or Black population. When I think of inclusivity and inclusion, it's more everybody has a right at the table. It's a little bit more business centric and people centric. And it has a more positive undertone for me because I tie equity to inclusivity, right?
Hmm.
Equality is not, it's not the most important thing anymore. It's equity. It's how do we make sure that everybody sitting at the table has this, they have an equal right, and we've sort of removed some of the barriers for them, and we see them for all of themselves, for all of the differences, for what lays below the waterline, right? Because when we look at it in its entirety, race and background is only one piece of the puzzle of what makes us so beautifully human. What is our sexual orientation? What is our religious orientation? What is our financial situation? Are we able to have children? Are we not able to have children? Are we missing a limb? Are we able to hear, speak, have one eye, one nostril? All of these things are make us different. But when we talk about inclusion and inclusivity, it says everybody's welcome because we have the common thing of we bleed the same blood. We're all human at the end of the day. And so for me, that's how I would explain it. I'm sure there's
You
probably a more
explained it
eloquent
beautifully.
way, but
No, this is really nice because I get the difference here. What has been the north star for you to have this level of evolved approach towards people? Because you're doing so many things outside
yeah.
of work. But even if I relate and connect the dots, I was reading some of the amazing recommendations that you've got on LinkedIn, and somehow people skills have always been the north star for you in terms of driving people forward. That's everybody has said that it's you are just incredible. I'm sure that makes you a great leader as well. I will get to that, but just understanding what's been the north star in terms of your approach towards accepting people, helping people, and this mindset.
What has been my approach is that it's ingrained in everything I do, right? So, just a quick funny story. I was at a baseball game with some of my clients the other day, and one of the gentlemen were like, Tara, so what do you like outside of work? Like, what do you love to do? And I'm like, I'm all about, I'm all about inclusivity and diversity and equity. He goes, no, I mean outside of work. And I'm like, yeah, no, like that's what I like. That's what I love. And what I mean by that is when I travel, I love to travel around the world. And sometimes I travel all by myself. And I love to go to like I'm a little extreme. Like I'll just book it like the week before, there's not all of this long planning and stuff. But when I travel, the core of why I travel is to literally understand people better in their communities, right? And to understand different cultures, and because that's really what makes me excited. It's not just lying on a beach at an all-inclusive resort. I want to struggle to communicate. I want to know what that's like, because I take it for granted that I can use my vocabulary here. I want to know what it's like to look different and to not know my way around. And so I guess the reason I think your question was like why I do it. And it's just something I've always done. Like ever since I was a child, I remember just not feeling like I fit in anywhere. And so I always wanted, like if I went to temple with my grandma, people were like, who is this? Like, what is she doing here? Right? Why does she have on a sari? This makes no sense. And then I would go to school and it's like, who is this big girl who's got dark hair and strange features? Like, what are you? And I'd get that question sometimes. I'm like, I'm just a girl, you know? So taking that feeling of not fitting in made me really want to make everyone around me feel like at least I was their home. At least I could make them feel beautiful, smart, whatever they wanted, but I could give them that space. And that made me feel great about myself. And that had huge impact on the others around me. And so I guess from childhood, it's just followed me. Um, and so that's kind of that's why it's my North Star.
That's interesting to know. And coming back and joining the dots here within the organization. Now, this is something which also adds to your leadership style, which is helping people grow and reach their full potential. So, could you give me some sort of a backstory, fun fact, or an instance where you've seen somebody really struggle and you've mentored this person, and now the person is at a stage where you're extremely proud of that person? So some story, some instance you have like that. It can be from either work or from what you do outside of work at the immigrant women for business foundation.
So, I mean, I love the stories of all of my employees. So, it's always hard when my employees promote out or I lose them because of changes in the organization. But I can say that that's been consistent with my hires. I've been lucky enough to watch them grow, and they've all brought some uniqueness to the table, which is really appreciated. But there is this person who's coming to mind, and I'll respect her name, but she works for what could be perceived as a competitor. And someone who I used to work with had recommended that I mentor her because she's junior in her career, and she's not an immigrant. She's blonde hair, blue eyed, achiever type. But it's amazing to watch her transformation in the last 6 months and truly just sitting and mentoring with her for an hour before we both start our work day every 2 weeks, I've seen her transform into someone that was trying to explain why she deserved a seat at the table to someone who owns her table, for someone who, instead of trying to navigate the changes in workforce and her having to prove out her value, she's owned her value. And in such, she started to emanate this energy that is attracting new opportunities to her. And just watching her flourish, and being able to use my own life experience to help navigate, really has brought me so much joy. Like, she always says thank you, but for me it's like, no, I need to thank her, because that's the whole point, right? Is we go through the struggle of life, whether it's in our career or in our personal events, and if we can take that struggle and learn our lessons and then pass it to someone else to make their journey a little easier, at least for me, it just makes everything so much more worthwhile. And it just helps me understand this ebb and flow of life better. So yeah, I was quite impressed by that. And she's still growing every day, but she comes to mind, and just watching that with simple time and energy and focus, and just shifting the focus slightly, she's definitely been able to attract far greater outcomes than before.
That's so powerful, and that's so endearing to hear how you're mentoring this person. And while your growth yourself in your career has been absolutely phenomenal, you've been breaking and setting sales records every organization that you've worked. So, a two-folded question. Number one would be that anybody comes to mind, any guidance that you got and mentoring that you got while you were rising through the ranks, if you could share some secret sauce there. And the second one is that what makes the sales process so much fun for you, because that's a skill that everybody should develop, how to close big deals. So I definitely am looking for some juicy instances and stories where you had a big deal that you had to close, lessons learned, and where everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong and you somehow managed to save the day. I mean, that's what makes us helps us grow, right? Eventually, the not so straightforward deals. So twofold questions. One, who was your mentor, and some advice, and second, some cool instances of what helps you make such an amazing salesperson.
I had so many wonderful mentors along the way. It is so hard to pick one. Like, Mark Liptok was the person who made me leave retail and go into technology. But then once I was in technology, I had like David Dorey, who was the type who was on the field with his team like me. And then I had Kevin Peasker, who created a unique opportunity for me to shine and in a diversified role, which made me so happy at work. He's running Microsoft now. So, we don't talk anymore, but he definitely, all three of them, what they had in common is they reinforced that I could believe in myself and go out there and change the trajectory and make things happen. On the reverse, just because we spent a lot of time talking about females in tech, I had two situations or three situations from females in tech that actually did the opposite. And so I'll use this opportunity to call out all those female leaders out there. Once again, make sure you're building up other female leaders. Make sure you're looking at them as collaboration and not competition. Because I felt that a lot, especially early in my career. And so I would have to push to those men. They were the ones who really kept me moving and gave me opportunities and coached me through some difficult changes and navigating different waters as I got more senior in leadership. And then for your second question, why I love sales. Okay, so sales is the most amazing job on the planet. People just don't realize that. Okay, real sales, I'm not talking about selling, something and forcing someone to buy it. I'm talking about jumping in, understanding what a client is going through, what they're suffering with, how to eliminate some of that or make it easier, even maybe get them a promotion. Well, when we sell to law enforcement agencies, sometimes we're saving lives. Healthcare, we're saving lives. Like, this makes impact, right? So taking that problem, understanding it, deconstructing it, finding out how your solution can help, what pieces of it, and then finding a way to story tell back so that the person can digest how your solution is better than the other solution. We're not talking about features, advantage, benefits. We're talking about like really painting a picture for them and then going through this powerful negotiation stage. It's almost like a boxing match, and then closing. And then the best part of all is downstream, when you see what you sold come to fruition and make that impact. It is every role you can imagine in one. You're a therapist, you're an architect, you're a leader, you're in the Navy SEALs sometimes when you're negotiating, it feels like. So it's all of these things bundled up in one. And so when it's done correctly, when we spend the right amount of time discovering the client's needs, it is a very mutually respectable situation, and it always comes out quid pro quo. And if you both can get value, and the organizations can both get value, and the end users can get value, then there's just this feeling of joy. It's just joyful. I can't say. I mean, it just makes me so happy. It's the best. It's the
And
best.
I can see it. I mean, you lit up while talking about it. So the passion clearly is there. And yeah, I mean, I've had certain roles which are sales oriented that I've held. And I can tell you this for sure that they're extremely gratifying. And when you see, like you said, at the end of the day, when the results actually turn into fruition, where you see the end product and how you had envisioned everything and how things are going, that impact, there is no feeling that matches it. It's just pure unadulterated joy.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
And so I was having this conversation with a young leader who I met through LinkedIn, and she's got a very interesting story. At 23, she had three different part-time jobs, and she was studying full-time. Now she's working at Deloitte and has a non-for-profit that she's running out of 4 countries. And she's been a TEDx speaker twice already. Like, you're blowing my mind. This is amazing. So I had a conversation with her, and I asked her that, listen, what are the 2 skills that you say are important for people to imbibe and to be successful? And she said this, that one, you should know sales and marketing, and two, public speaking. These two are the most underrated skills. And if you are good at these two, then you've got life sorted. Now, you were talking about it, I could connect the dots, and I could see, like, let's say a 23-year-old version of you. That's who she is. And I would love to get your perspective that in terms of skills that really help you grow in life, what would you say? How important is sales, marketing, and public speaking to hone and master?
I mean, they're extremely important. They're absolutely up there with the most important skills. But I would go a little deeper and say what makes those skills. So for the first part, I think the number one skill is actually listening, right? It's listening. So listening, of course, is the biggest thing with effective marketing and effective sales, because otherwise you're just like, here, let me tell you about my entire company's product portfolios. People ask me, they're like, how come I don't know what you do on your website, like in your own company? And I'm like, because I don't know what you need yet. you know? So listening. And then further to your public speaking is imperative. But what that really means is communicating effectively.
Hmm.
So whether it's in a one-to-one interaction or with a client or with a group or in the public to 5,000 people, So I would just deconstruct it a little bit, because I think those two skill sets, listening and communicating effectively, and I would have to throw on there a third, which is resiliency,
Hmm.
because you need to be able to listen, you need to be able to express your point of view and be open, but you have to have resiliency, because we get so caught up in what we want to happen. We're not always able to manage effectively when things don't go the way we want them to. And that, I think, is a big killer in business, right? We've got to know how to weather those storms, they say, and
Absolutely.
have
Yeah.
that resiliency to find joy in the tiny moments, because it's not always going to be a great economy out there. It's not always going to be thriving. You're going to lose people that you love inside and outside of work. How do you manage those tides of change?
Right. And you've given me the perfect segue into my next question. And right now, this is exactly what we are going through, uncertain times in our economy. Tech is probably facing a large brunt of it there as well. So, in general, now somebody who's been caught up in this rut, and I don't think layoffs necessarily mean anything to who an individual is, and it's easy to say it if you haven't experienced it, but if you're on the other side, of course things would be different. You've been on the side where you've probably given good news and this bad news. What a prepares you for something like that?
Nothing. Nothing. you know, we try to be prepared. We understand that the markets ebb and flow, and that we work for an organization and we have to do what is best for the organization at that time. And if it's deemed that we have to let someone go, we have to let them go. That doesn't ever mean it's easy for me, anyways. There's never a time where I've had to release someone and it be easy. How it is bearable is that I always treat them with respect and dignity, and thank them for individual contributions they provided. Because even if someone is going because they're not the right fit, or they were not showing up and working hard enough, or whatever it is, there's always something they brought to the table. And I think it's important for them to understand that on their journey. I always truly try to connect with myself and meditate before I do it. And this may sound a little esoteric for the listeners, but I really try to get in my heart space. And as I'm doing it, really am trying to visualize and wish them an amazing job for their next job. And I've hired people again. So I always try to listen to how they feel. And sometimes it's hard, because it's hard to hear you're a great leader and I wish I could have done more for you, because you're not letting them go because they're not a great employee, for example. So the last thing I try to do is always help them after the fact, reach out to my network and see if when they're ready, I can help them get placed. So those are kind of the ways that I cope with having to let people go in this difficult economy.
Thanks for sharing that. That's really interesting to know, because it's always good to know the other side perspective as well. Because in this scenario, you're always talking about the person who's lost the job, but I also wanted to understand how easy or difficult it is to communicate that information and that news to someone, because that clearly isn't easy.
No, like, and just one
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
like,
sure.
we as leaders want employees, and peers that are going to go out there and understand their why. They understand and choose to work with you. They don't work with you because they have to, right? I mean, that's the best salesperson you're going to find, is someone who chooses to work with you. They've got other offers, but you've got to sell them. The hardest thing is when you sell them, they're working for you. Your whys are aligned. You're on your way to some great momentum, and you've got to let them go. So as a person, you realize, like, that's a person on the other side. They have a family, they have concerns, they have all of these things that we have as individuals. We're just in the leader seat, but we, I think, struggle equally, just in different ways.
That's great perspective to have. It's important to know that the other person also is just as human and probably tasked with the dirty job of passing on that news. But the B part to this, Tara, is that we hear this so much that networking is the key to your next job, to any job, and what your personal brand says about you is critical to how successful you're going to be. And this is so true given the digital age that we are in, because there is a life that we have on social media as well. I don't know how and where the line is going to become blurry, or when it will start becoming blurry, because then today it's all about personal branding. And I'll stick to LinkedIn over here. The world that I come from, essentially, we typically, I haven't seen in automotive companies per se. What we'll do is, if we are at a cool event, because of the virtue of being in automotive, you can take nice pictures of fancy cars, put them up. This is the event that I was doing, or this is what I was doing. How are we supposed to start leveraging LinkedIn as a leader? Are you looking at somebody's LinkedIn before you hire them,
Yes.
and if you are, then what sort of things are you looking for?
So for all of your listeners, if you're Googling your customer is Googling you, right? So it's really
Nice.
important not just to brand yourself, but it's important for your customer to know who you are and what your leadership style is like, or what your selling style is like. So if you do a lot of events, you want to put that out there to not just promote yourself, but to show the professional network that this is important for me. I'm taking time out of my day because I want to be with my clients at Stampede, or I want to come and speak at this public sector network in MC. And so that's why I post them, is I want my clients to know, when you do business with Click and Talent and you do business with my reps, I'm here to support you, right? I'm not in a back corner office. I'm in the trenches. I'm there. And so, as sellers or as professionals, they should be doing the same. If you do a course, if you're doing something interesting, bring life to who you are, because that's what makes you unique. You're not just the sum of what's on your resume. Those days are gone, right? Now it's important
Absolutely.
to broaden that brushstroke and let customers and potential employers see more behind the curtain as to who you are.
Absolutely, and your personality needs to come out from there as well. I was having a discussion with one career coach about this, and I was like, there are so many times that probably my resume has not communicated my true personality, and I may have been the perfect fit for a role at a company, but just because it was my resume, that probably never got picked because of the ATS system, or maybe I just did a horrible job putting it together, whatever may be the reason. But I would have been perfect for that. And the only substitute to that is probably bringing that personality alive on LinkedIn. Of course, following the social norms that let's not become too extremist, but just letting the world know who you are, what you stand for, your thoughts, your likes, dislikes, interests, anything that we've shared. Because it's also the digital age, right? We are not in office 5 days a week anymore.
No, we're not. And so much work is done outside of work, right? So much work is, and I can't tell you the last time I hired someone exclusively on a resume. Resumes are not even a dime a dozen anymore. Like, if you're starting to especially calibrate a higher level of career,
Hmm.
your resume is just going to talk about your history of work. Is that all you are as a human being? Is that all you're going to bring to work? If you love to get out and feed the poor on the weekends and be part of the basket brigade with me, for example, people should know that that's important to you. Or if you love extreme BMXing, right? Someone else out there might love extreme BMXing, and you guys have something to talk about and network. I mean, networking is critical in any sales role, but you network before you even meet the person. And that's what LinkedIn brings to the table. And so joining different groups and posting more, I mean, we're all super busy. So I myself can't do it like every day, but when you can, it's important to put that out there.
That's really interesting to know because I do feel that we need to, and the more I have this conversation, the more reinforcement I get about the fact that it is important for people to start posting more on LinkedIn, apart from the fact that, hey, I got this job, or just like other people's comments. There is a certain dialogue which I feel a lot of times is missing. And that's very basic, right? If you start communicating with people on their posts, not necessarily like I had the opportunity to meet you at an event, and I could strike a conversation with you over there. But LinkedIn is something that you will log into probably every single day. You don't go to a networking event every single day, and it's just about picking one person's post and engaging with it, right?
And I think sometimes in our professional career, we're too afraid to show up as ourselves. And we feel like it's been taught to us. It didn't come from just anywhere. It's been taught, it's been pushed down through the ages, right? Because well before the tech revolution, everything was about process and following the process and plugging in, right? Let's talk about black belt sigma. It has to be done this way all the time. And I think right now, with where we're at with technology and AI, we just need to be more agile. How do you be
Hmm.
more agile? You be more authentic. And this authenticity word is also overused, just like diversity and inclusion, but it is critical because authenticity really just means showing up and being real. And so that means if you see something and you like it and you want to express yourself, of course, respectfully and with tact, you do that. Don't be afraid. And I think that's what happens, especially for immigrants. There is Grammarly if you're afraid of the grammar or the spelling, or I was
Yes.
born here and I still spell terribly. So come on, just there are tools to help you be more effective, but be authentic. Put your word out there, put your energy out there. If someone posts something that you're interested in, you are 100% right. It will only serve you to to get out there and respond and to say something about it.
Absolutely. And building on to that, we're able to develop and build great relationships, which you never know how they're going to be helpful. The biggest obstacle has been that people think about it from a perspective of, oh, I need to ask somebody for something. And again, if we're going in with that sort of a mindset, we're not going to be very successful, right? It's parallel I can draw is like doing a sales pitch just to make sure that you're able to make money off a person and not give them value in return. So automatically, I think more than the other person, we are on the back foot entering that relationship, and probably that authenticity does not get translated through our actions or communication. So if you have that guilt, you know that you're not doing it correctly.
So I like so true, right? Like if you go in with the energy of I'm just doing this to network to get something from people, nobody's going to want to network with you. If you go in and say I'm doing this because I really want to spend this time to genuinely connect with people who are like-minded, or to genuinely connect with people in my career field, or you put out a different type of energy. You put out a whole different aura almost, right? And that's what people want. They want to connect with real people, not just someone who is looking to take. And eventually you will get where you need to go with the person. You will get a business connection or whatever it is you're looking for, the meeting, but that should be secondary.
I couldn't agree more with you. LinkedIn, networking, we've been able to establish that connection and get that favor. Now, a couple of questions I'm going to throw at you, which are part of my section called Actionable Insights. And this is something that people can immediately apply to their lives.
Okay.
You're sitting across the recruiter, and you're going in for your interviews. Now, give me based on your experience, a couple of things that you would say we should not do to cock up our interview and completely go bust with that. What should I do to make sure, two or three things what I shouldn't be doing in an interview to be able to create a decent impact? Because I understand knowing what to do is important, but knowing what not to do is equally important.
Well, obviously don't show up late.
Perfect.
If something happens and there's an accident on the road or something, don't show up and give an excuse about being late. Own it. right? Like own whatever the happening was. Don't show up like the Will Smith in The Pursuit of Happiness when his clothes were all muddy, right? Like dress the
I
part,
remember that.
please.
Yes. Yes.
Put I do strongly believe that the way we show up, first appearances are critical. And
Hmm.
it doesn't mean you have to wear a suit, but whatever you're showing up in, make sure it's professional, it's ironed, it makes you feel good. Don't buy something and it's too tight and you're trying to hold your tummy in for the meeting, or like, you're uncomfortable and you're hot and you're sweating and the sweat's coming, because you'll feel uncomfortable and then you'll present as if you are. So show up in something that makes you feel great, that is professional, that is something that attracts the other person and speaks a bit about your character. Don't just show up in all black, right? Like show, unless that's something you do every day, and then that's fine. But give yourself a little creative expression, be happy and comfortable in what you wear. And I would say the third thing is don't show up unprepared with the person who's across from you and the organization. And when I say unprepared, it means prepared with questions to ask, because your questions tell as much about you as your answers to my questions.
Hmm.
Know about the person, take the time to Google them, because as I said, they've already Googled you, and know about the business. What is the business that, even if you're trying to start off serving coffee at Starbucks, but you want to work your way to the C-level position, what are the statistics? How did they do last year with their revenue? What are they trying to change about the company? And how will you help impact that? Because every little thing that people do has a ripple effect, right? If you show up and you're smiling and you take a angry client and de-escalate them, you're adding to the bottom line. Like, don't show up and not know what those bottom line goals are. Know what they are, know who the
Hmm.
person is in front of you, and know about your role. Those would be the three things.
That's really powerful and very interesting. I'm sure that the audience is going to find that extremely valuable. And some certain few questions which are a little tricky. So, how does one answer what is your weakness?
Uh, that's a really good one. What is my weakness? I mean, I have several weaknesses. I would start with I'm
Is
not well organized.
wow.
I outsource that. Because it's a weakness. I need someone to like just manage my calendar, tell me where I need to be and why I need to be there. But yeah, I'm not well organized. I could certainly do better there. That's a weakness. Pizza is a weakness. Like, I could be doing great on my cleanse for a week and then I just want some thin crust pizza. That's another weakness. Um, Still sometimes saying yes too much.
Hmm.
Because when we have a desire to help and serve, we don't always quantify the benefit of the work we're doing.
Hmm.
And sometimes I don't spend enough time understanding what I say no to when I say yes to something. And that's critical, because every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to three things.
See, these things are important for people to understand because we need to know the mindset of the leaders as well, what they struggle with, and how they are traversing through their own challenges. It's interesting to know, and
I
something
have
which
more
is.
too, actually. As you're thinking, I got
I'm.
more.
Yes, please share.
Another weakness that I have is, at least once a day, the voice will come up in my head that will make me the imposter syndrome, or what I
Hmm.
like to call the gremlin on my back. And the gremlin always shows up, and it to keep me safe, but it will make me feel like I'm not worthy for the task at hand. And it will make me re-question it and validate why I'm here and feel I need to externally validate why I need to lead. That's a big weakness. And I continue to work on it daily. I continue to reinforce my value to myself daily. I have a morning ritual where I literally tell myself that I love myself in the morning. I glaze at my eyes sometimes and stare in my eyes. It's very hard. But this is the way that I deal with that imposter syndrome. And I also spent a lot of time understanding where it came from. The imposter syndrome always comes from childhood limiting beliefs. Something that happened like pre 7 years old, someone said something to you or did something to you, and you programmed it in the back of your mind. And now every time you're about to take a big jump, a big risk, have an important call, do a great podcast with you, that little gremlin says, hey, are you sure you want to go out there? It's not safe. Stay here with me. At least you know you're protected. So that would be probably one of my biggest things that I continue to work on daily.
I'm speechless with that because I'm just trying to break this down in my head. I have read the recommendations on LinkedIn, and people raving about how you're a phenomenal leader, how you own every room you enter, the amazing deals that you've closed, the awesome leader that you are. And of course, you're doing so many things. You have your YouTube channel, you are mentoring people, you are a founder for tech at Immigrant Women in Business, and you're still on a daily basis go through a ritual where you're fighting imposter syndrome. So I'm just trying to rationalize this in my mind. It's difficult that so basically the deduction is that all of us have imposter syndrome. We have this voice which keeps telling us, are you worthy enough? But is it something that requires, like you said, day to day work to keep at bay?
I believe it does. I believe it gets easier and faster the more work you put in. But our inner child is still in us. And so, sometimes my inner child will throw a temper tantrum. Like, I just want to slam the door and yell. I'm much better at witnessing it, confronting it, acknowledging it, and then putting it to bed. Those are the steps, right? We've got to see what is it, the message that's coming through. Spend some time and acknowledge it, and then after you do, okay, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to feel the fear of not being perfect, and I'm going to do it anyways. And the more you do that, the bigger risks you start to take, right? And I was afraid of heights my whole life. I still am. I'm afraid of heights. So when I'm getting to the tip of Everest Base Camp, or when I'm in Machu Picchu and I'm looking over, I am scared to the point where I'm like, is my heart going to jump out of my chest? When I'm about to jump out of a plane, I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I do it anyways. And I think that's how we have to deal with our imposter syndrome, is understand that the root of it is fear. And if we love ourselves enough to push past the fear, we will change our outcomes every day in small ways. And that's how we make the big changes that we desire in our life.
Mic drop. This, this is the
Thanks.
perfect answer. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, before I let you go, I need a couple of things I need to ask you. One, I know that you run this program where you're helping individuals who are looking at coaching and mentoring. So I don't need to know more about it. Somebody who's listened to our conversation and is absolutely in love with you and wants to reach out to you. What can you tell us about the program, and how and where can somebody get in touch with you?
Sure. So my website has all of the ways to get in touch with me at taramyshrall.com. I made it very easy for people. I don't do one-on-one coaching. So I do
Mhm.
one-on-one mentoring. The difference is that I don't charge for mentoring. So I do mentoring. I have limited spaces because I have to carve that time out for people, and it has to be consistent for 6 months to really have big impact with mentorship programs. I do what's called group coaching, online group coaching, and online courses where I've got permission to expand. And then the next online course is called Activate Abundance. So it's a scarcity versus abundant mindset. And then I do retreats. So the goal is, COVID sort of slowed that down a little bit, but 2 retreats a year, one for sort of the general public, and then one for leaders that are looking to take their game to the next level. And the only other thing to keep in mind is I only do my group classes or coaching or retreats morning, night, or the weekends. I don't do it during business hours. So somebody has to be flexible to do that if they want to work with me. Or I have tons of coaches in my roster I can refer them to if they want to coach during the day.
Thank you. And what's the best way to connect with you?
So taramyshrall.com, my first name, last name.com, or on IG, Tara Myshrall Speaks. Those are the best ways. When you go to my website, it has my IG, it has my Facebook, it has my LinkedIn, it has all that stuff. So it makes it easy for you.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. And yeah, that's what I wanted to get from you the first time around. Absolutely loved the conversation, Tara. There's so much of value that you've shared and so much wisdom over there. I am certain that my audience is going to love this conversation.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you again for having me and this opportunity to share space with you. I love the work you do, and also with your listeners, for taking the time out to work on improving themselves and looking at the opportunity for what's next for themselves. So thank you.